On today's episode of Cubs 360, I'm bringing my friend Johnathan on the show to talk about our MLB standings predictions for the 2025 season. Not only will we rank teams based off their division, but we will also rank playoff teams and make our way too early playoff predictions based off that. That's all happening soon on Cubs 360. What's up, Cubs fans? This is Jack from Cubs 360. Thank you very much for tuning in to episode 9 of the Cubs 360 podcast. If you're interested in this content, feel free to like and subscribe, and also follow us on Twitter at Cubs360X. So this is going to be a pretty long video, but worth the conversation because, as you know, I'm bringing my friend Johnathan on to talk about some standings predictions. So that's all you're going to get for now. Before we get to that, though, I'd like to apologize in advance because we did record this on Friday night. I was hoping I'd get it out on Saturday, and most of you are going to be watching this when you wake up on Sunday. So I'll take accountability for that. That's on me. But hopefully you'll be able to watch this just in time before it gets too late. So it is the opening series for a lot of teams, and I think getting this just in time will be all right. So anyways, without further ado, here's the interview with my friend Johnathan on our standings predictions for the 2025 MLB season. All right, so this is our interview for our Cubs 360 episode. I'm being joined by my friend Johnathan Conacher. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here. Ready to talk some baseball, ready to have a good time.
All right, so obviously, opening day was yesterday. We're recording this on Friday night, so this should be coming out on Saturday for all of you. But just want to go through some quick things for you. So the Yankees obviously lost Juan Soto in the free agency to the Mets. They signed Paul Goldschmidt. They traded for Cody Bellinger, Devin Williams. So they also got Max Fried as well. So how are you feeling right now? They got the win, I know, on opening day against Milwaukee. So just early thoughts. What are your thoughts on the Yankees so far?
I mean, that opening game, they kind of followed their script, so to speak, perfectly. Rodon pitched 5 1/3 inning, had like 7 strikeouts. Devin Williams with the save, Luke Weaver to set up. Obviously that Austin Wells home run. First leadoff Yankee catcher since 1900 to do that. It's kind of a weird stat. I thought that was interesting. Yeah, obviously it's a good win. More to come.
Yeah, I know there was a lot of hype around Austin Wells going into the season. Really taking the catcher or the number one catcher for the Yankees from Jose Trevino, who I know got dealt to the Reds. But seeing Wells be able to do that, and I didn't really know that stat since like 1900, so very impressive by Austin Wells there. What are your thoughts on Carlos Rodon so far? Seemed like he had a good game. Also want to talk about Volpe because he had a big home run in that game as well.
Yeah, Volpe, had the home run to extend the lead 2-0. Rodon he looked dominant, only let up 1 earned run. That's kind of just what you need out of him, especially with Garrett Cole gone. You need games like that. Even if he doesn't pitch 6 innings, even if he doesn't throw 100 pitches, you just need him to put guys away.
Yeah. And I'll just quickly say some things about the Cubs. I don't want to get too deep into it because I'm going to be making a video about this probably after the game on Sunday night or sometime on Monday. But they got the win on opening day against the Arizona Diamondbacks, so they're technically 1-2. But on American soil, they're 1-0. I do have some personal opinions from that Tokyo series. I don't think it was really in our favor, to be honest with you. But I would say the offense looked really good. Our catcher, who I was kind of concerned about as the only guy that could really not hit, who really elevated his game at the end of the season. He had 5 RBIs yesterday. Ian Happ had a 2 RBI double, also had a home run. So I was really impressed with that. Justin Steele got the start. Wasn't particularly sensational, not the Justin Steele that we know, but I think we got a little bit lucky in a sense that Zach Gallen was just worse than Justin Steele in that, but I got to give a lot of credit to the offense. The offense that we had was pretty much what we expected of them. Kyle Tucker had an RBI. You got what you got from Ian Happ. Pico Armstrong stole a base, and you're going to get a lot more from that. Matt Shaw, I would say, looked pretty good. Nico Horner came back, and he wasn't even quite expected to be back by opening day. He was. Dansby Swanson looked good. Mike Bush as well. So I'm really excited to see what the offense can do. But for the pitching, I mean, just got to hope you can get better consistency.
Right. I didn't watch that game, so good to hear your thoughts on that. Kind of catch me up to speed. Just what you said, Cubs pitching was probably their biggest question mark going into this season.
Yeah.
Just got to see how things develop.
Yeah. I'm to be honest with you, I only watched like the first 5 innings and then I went to bed. It was like almost midnight when the 5th inning ended. We had the 10 o'clock start because it was in Phoenix. But
right.
Overall, just some pretty good thoughts so far. Chicago Cubs and the Yankees. I thought for what the Yankees had up against them, especially with the Soto contract, I think the Yankees had a good offseason. I think the Cubs had a good offseason, and they both got opening day wins. So both of us with a win so far. And the Cubs do have a game tonight as I'm recording this against Arizona. It's going to be Jameson Taillon, former Yankee, taking on Merrill Kelly. So we'll see what happens there.
Yep, absolutely. And the Yankees playing tomorrow. Fried getting the start there. Really excited to see his Yankee debut.
I'm excited too.
Especially against former Yankee Nestor Cortez. Wish the best for him. My last memory for him as a Yankee was that Freddie Freeman walk-off grand slam, which really sucks because I love Nestor. Terrible that was kind of the last time we got to see him in pinstripes, but hope he's not the same old Nestor tomorrow.
Yeah.
Hope we can pick up the win.
Hey, and also I want to just put some salt in the wound to some Brewers fans. Cherio went 0 for 5 with some strikeouts in that game. I think he had 5 strikeouts.
Yeah, I think 2 of them at the hand of Rodon.
Yeah. So just a little salt in the wound to some Brewers fans there. But anyways, I think we can get to our predictions now. I'll let you start with what division we should start with.
Think, start with the NL East because, as I'm looking at it, I just got a notification on my phone. Juan Soto home run. So
we got his first home run as a Met. All right.
Yep. Solo home run. Mets up 3-0. So why don't we go ahead and start with the NL East?
All right. So with that, I think we're pretty confident in who's going to go last in this division. They got the win yesterday against Pittsburgh, but I think we all know that the Marlins are going to go last in this division.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I look at this Marlins team, especially that offense, and nothing jumps off the page. Just a team of, not really any game changers, no guys who really leap out at me at all, especially in that offense. Sandy Alcantara coming off an injury, got to see how he's going to do, but I would not be surprised if you see them moving him at the deadline. Mm-hmm. And, one of the worst ranked farm systems in the league as of this moment. And I don't know, nothing really seems to be going the Marlins' way right now.
Yeah, they're just in trouble right now. It's just the position of where the team is right now, on top of just the prospects that they have. Like I said, I think their payroll, I don't even know where it's at. It's very low. I think there's some individual. I think Juan Soto's contract is more than the Marlins payroll, and Alcantara has almost half of that, and they might move him. I like that you brought up Sandy Alcantara maybe being dealt at the deadline because there were a lot of rumors, especially the offseason, even now with the Chicago Cubs potentially going after him, and there are some suitors for him. I can think of a few off the top of my head that could really use a pitcher, and if Alcantara can just get to full health and be not just be 80% of what he was in 2022 when he won the Cy Young on, again, a very bad Marlins team that year as well. So if he can just be able to be healthy, I think the Marlins could get a decent return for him. And again, talking about them right now. The Chicago Cubs could be one of those teams.
Yeah, if they do deal Alcantara, absolutely, got to look at prospects, got to upgrade that farm system because,
Yeah.
as it stands right now, they're in a hole right now and they're not going to be digging themselves out of that hole anytime soon. Right
Yeah.
now is bleak and the future is bleak.
Yep. And that's the thing with us. Like, we have a ton of good prospects, and not all of them are going to get a ton of opportunity. Like, look at Cam Smith, for an example, from Houston. We had to trade him in the Tucker deal. He's a starting right fielder. He's a third baseman, but still. We have a ton of guys that are not going to get that opportunity, and we have a top 5 prospect pool in the league. Last time I checked, I don't know where it is exactly now, but regardless, there are some guys that you're going to have to trade, and I think the Marlins should look at that and say, wow, look at Chicago with a good prospect pool. We need prospects. We're trying to deal a pitcher. The Cubs need pitching. I think that's just a match made in heaven for both of those teams.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Um, you know, Marlins just got to find a way to um do something with that lineup.
Yeah. So with that, we'll move to the team that's going in fourth place. And I'm going to say this, and I do genuinely mean this. They're not your average fourth place team. I'm going to go with the Washington Nationals here.
Yeah, and I love that you said that, not your average fourth place team because the Nationals, I like that lineup. I do, I do love that trio of Dylan Cruz, CJ Abrams, and James White. I think that Nationals are a team that can, maybe influence the standings of the NL East.
They really could.
They're going to be playing. Yep, they're going to be playing in a lot of just gritty division games, and they can kind of have a say in that last National League wild card spot,
Yeah.
depending on how they do against their divisional opponents. But absolutely what you said, not your average fourth place team.
And that's what I like about the Nationals right now too, because they're not in a position where they need to be competitive, but at the same time, they're just stuck behind 3 really good teams. And like you just said, they could really determine how that order goes. Because I've seen many people give their standings predictions and have all 3 other teams win the division, but a lot of that can be influenced, like you said, by Washington. I like what they have going on with their prospects. I don't know way too much from their pitching front, but I know they have a couple of guys that can really be good pitchers for them. So I'm excited to see what Washington does. I think they definitely could get to at least 500 this season, get at least 81 wins. So for Washington, it's just a development year, but at the same time, you're going to see some really fun baseball from that team.
Yeah, they're definitely a team I'm going to be paying attention to. Mackenzie Gore is, very solid ace. Just a team to kind of look out for.
Yeah, so we have the Washington Nationals in fourth. So now it gets pretty tough. We go to the top 3 in the NL East. I'll say this, I'm pretty confident in who I think is going to be going third place in this division. We just talked about them just a second ago. I'm going to pick the New York Mets to go third.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you there. Put the Mets at third. And really the big reason for me is just that pitching rotation.
Yeah.
Clay Holmes was their day one starter yesterday. And, obviously they lost that game. And, people said all spring training, he had like no earned runs all of spring training. But, at the same time, it's spring training. How much can you really take away from that?
Exactly.
And, Clay Holmes, when he threw a lot of pitches during Yankee games last year, tended to not work out so well. So you kind of got to see how that's going to play out. But, as of right now, Sean Manaea is injured. They don't
Yep.
know when he's coming back. And, Kenta Maeda is a solid pitcher. But, after Kenta Maeda, that Mets rotation is really not good.
Yeah.
And that Mets bullpen is just kind of mid.
Yeah.
Your offense can only take you so far.
It really can. And defense wins championships. That's really what it is. So
Absolutely.
they have one of the better closers in the game with Edwin Diaz. I think we both can agree with that. They have Kodai Senga. They have Sean Manaea. that's basically it. Clay Holmes started in that game one, and I did talk to a Mets fan, and that Mets fan told me that I think Kodai Senga, I believe, is just not starting game one because the Mets want to play him in the home opener, the day one home opener for the Mets, which is what the Cubs are doing with Shota Imanaga. So he's going to be starting tomorrow night for the Cubs, and Tyone's going in this one. So Shota Imanaga will get the first game at Wrigley this season. But like I said, they have also Frankie Montas that's hurt right now, and they gave him a good amount of money. There were some better pitchers, in my opinion, that signed for less than what Frankie Montas did. So, in my opinion, I just think the Mets are not in a good position with their pitching, and I think it's going to really hurt them because the two teams that we have in front of them just have better pitching if they can stay healthy. I think if the pitching somehow works out for the Mets, maybe they end up higher in the division, but the offense, like you said, can only take you so far.
Right. And I just want to correct myself real quick because I believe I said Kenta Maeda when I was talking about the Mets rotation,
Oh,
and I meant Kodai Senga. I'm sorry about that. No, I just want to correct myself quick.
yeah, that's all good. So now we go to the team that's going to be in second place, and this is really tough for me. I I'm going to give the slight edge to win the division, the Phillies, which means I have the Braves going second, Phillies winning that division.
Now, obviously, been boring up to this point because we haven't disagreed yet, but I'm going to say the Phillies too, just kind of because Phillies won the division last year, and I think it's harder to have a better season than it is to have a worse.
Yeah.
And for the Braves, they got a little bit to go, just barely making the playoffs last year. They definitely got a little bit to go this year. That's not to say that they can't win this division because they absolutely can.
Yeah.
It's just I think at the end of the day, the Phillies are going to win more games.
Yeah. And I will mention this too. The Phillies at the All-Star break last year were like the best team in baseball, and then they fell off in the final 2 months. First round exit to the Mets in the division series. So I think they're going to be very aggressive at the deadline. And who knows? Maybe there's a world where they trade for Mike Trout. You never know. But at the end of the day, the Phillies really got to go for it this year, in my opinion. Their window's closing. They have such a good team, a lot of talent. They have a really good pitching rotation. I know they acquired Luzardo from the Marlins. They also have at the top of the rotation Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola. And just that lineup is just nasty when everyone's clicking. So I think the Phillies really had to go for it. And in my honest opinion, that's really why I have them winning the division. On top of that, Atlanta, they just have a ton of injury problems. When they're healthy, they are one of the best teams in baseball. And even with the injuries, they are one of the better teams. But they can really elevate the talent when they're fully healthy. But the problem is they just haven't been able to stay healthy.
Yeah. I'm kind of going to piggyback off what you said with the Phillies windows closing because I agree with you there. How many more good years are you going to get of Nick Castellanos or Kyle Schwarber, Brandon Marsh? Those guys are getting up in age,
You could
and
add Bryce Harper in there as well.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Bryce Harper will take a little longer to slow down,
Yeah,
but
he's getting
these
up there
guys are
too.
getting old, and definitely like this year or like within the next 2 or 3 years, they got to make a World Series push, or it just won't happen with that team.
Yeah. And it sucks because I really do like that team. I really do think the Phillies have something there and they could really go far. So
Yeah,
with that,
absolutely.
all right, so with that, both of us are in agreement with our NL East division predictions. We have the Marlins finishing fifth, the Nationals finishing fourth, the Mets finishing third, Atlanta finishing second, and the Phillies winning that division. So I guess we'll just go across the map and we'll just go to the National League Central if that's all right with you.
Yeah, that works with me.
All right, so we're gonna go with the fifth place team. This could be a bit of disagreement here, but I think yesterday's game really showed why I have this team in last place. I know I went back and forth with two teams, but I went towards one team. Yesterday really sold me over. I have the Pittsburgh Pirates going in last.
Yeah, I knew you were gonna say that. Pirates to me are just they're a strange team, but I do kind of like what they have going on. With Paul Skeens, Brian Reynolds, O'Neill Cruz, all of them. Um, and they're just a very strange team. They don't have a terrible lineup, but they just kind of struggle to win games. But even though, you could say they struggle to win games, but I still have some faith in them. So I'm going to put them fourth, and below them, I'm going to stick to St. Louis Cardinals.
All right, so we'll talk about St. Louis because I actually have St. Louis in fourth. So I think we could just quickly just get that off the board right now. So I have the Pirates in fifth, St. Louis in fourth. You have St. Louis fifth, and Pittsburgh fourth. So let's just talk about the Cardinals for a little bit.
All right, yeah. The Cardinals, their offense is kind of strange to me because the top of their lineup isn't bad and the bottom of their lineup isn't good. It's like
Yeah,
they're just in like this weird limbo kind of position, But Nolan Arenado, he's supposed to be like the guy for the Cardinals, and at this
yeah,
point in his career, I don't think he's the guy anymore,
yeah,
Obviously there's Lars Nootbaar, um, Jordan Walker, he's steadily been getting better. Um, but just, losing Paul Goldschmidt is definitely a hit. Um, Wilson Contreras is still good, but they kind of just fall off at that bottom of the order. And their pitching outside of like Sonny Gray is not good.
yeah,
And, especially that bullpen, I think, they're going to struggle to win games, especially in those late months where you have to go to the bullpen a lot. And
yeah,
that's kind of really all I have to say about them. They could, win like 84 games, or they could win like 70 games.
yeah. So that's with St. Louis. Like honestly, the thing is too, and last year they had Mason Wynn, who was at the top of the lineup. He had a good year. Spring training, he struggled, and he's at the bottom of the rotation. They have Wilson Contreras playing first base, like for the first time, like ever. And then, like you said, Nolan Arenado, he's just not the guy anymore. They were looking to trade him. You know, they were looking at trading him to Houston. He didn't want to go there. He stays in St. Louis. Then the Tucker deal happens. Houston gets their third baseman. So the problem is with St. Louis is they're just in a very weird spot. Like you said, they're not good enough to be competitive, but at the same time, are they really bad enough to be awful?
Right. And, kind of just want to talk a little bit more about Nolan Arenado because I think they should have dealt him during the
They
offseason.
should have. They should have.
I don't know if they're banking on him having a good start to the year and then trying
Yeah.
to, bargain him off during the deadline, but that's putting, quite a bit of faith in him.
Yeah.
And like you said and like I said, Nolan Arenado just is not the guy anymore. Really unfortunate to say that because he was the guy, 2-3 years ago. But I don't like the situation that the Cardinals have put themselves in.
Yeah, neither have I, to be quite honest with you. So I think at the end of the day, they're gonna be at like a 70 something win team. They're gonna be really, really bad, but at the same time, like they're not bad enough to be like awful, like with 100 losses. Like they're gonna be somewhere like with like mid 70 wins and like mid 80 losses. That's kind of where they're gonna be.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're definitely right about
Like they
that.
really, really had to tear it down if they want to have 100 losses. They just really got to get into rebuild, and they do have the
Yeah.
fifth pick in the summer draft, so maybe that'll propel them just a little bit. And I don't even think their prospect pool is in a good position either. So just to point that out.
Yeah, their farm system is kind of towards the middle of the pack, since bringing, Jordan Walker was their like big prospect and He's been brought up. He struggled a little. He's had, some good spouts. But yeah, Cardinals just in kind of a state of limbo at this point.
Yeah. So there's St. Louis. We talked about Pittsburgh as well. So let's go to the team that we have in third place. This could be very interesting because I think this really could go any order depending on how you see one of these teams. But I think in third place, I'm going to go with the Cincinnati Reds.
For me, in third place, I just kind of want to shake things up because I think the NL Central is going to be pretty interesting this year.
Yeah.
Brewers, the Brewers,
Really?
the Brewers. They, they didn't get better this offseason.
They didn't.
I think they've gotten quite a bit worse. Losing Willie Adames, losing Devin Williams. Brandon Woodruff is coming back this year. Even before his injury, he was kind of falling off. So the Brewers, I just don't think they're gonna win a ton of games.
So I'm going to talk about the Reds for a little bit just because, they did improve like a little bit. They have a new manager. They have Francona in there. I just don't think they're better than the other two teams. That's really what it comes down to. I love Ellie De La Cruz. Hunter Green is good, but outside of that, like, what in particular do they really have? That's where my thinking is with the Cincinnati Reds. I just don't think they're good enough to make a super big jump, and I think third place, probably at slightly above 500 is where they're going to be. And that's no disrespect to the Reds whatsoever. I just don't think they're better than the other two teams that we're going to talk about.
To me, the Reds, I think they have a lot of team chemistry, definitely. A lot of just young core. And the NL Central, to me, I think most of the teams they're going to have around the same record, around the same amount of wins. And I think the Reds are just going to barely edge out the Brewers. Probably except for the first place team, I just think, those bottom four teams are just going to be just kind of around the same record.
All right. So with that, I think we can pretty much go with the top two teams. I think both of us are going to go with the Chicago Cubs to win this division, which means you have Cincinnati going second. I have Milwaukee going second.
Yeah. The Cubs are probably just the most well-rounded team in this division. Obviously, as we said before, their pitching is their biggest question mark moving forward, but I expect them to be active at the deadline. I expect them to, try to make the push late in the season. And, they're just going to be competitive all year to me.
Yeah, so I'm just going to talk about Milwaukee before I talk about Chicago. But the thing is with the Brewers, they get worse like almost every offseason, just watching them. The truth is with them is, look, we know last offseason they lost Counsell to the Cubs. They lost Corbin Burns in the trade with the Baltimore Orioles. And the thing is, they were still good. Pat Murphy won the Manager of the Year. They did lose Willie Adames. That is a huge, huge loss for that team. And then, obviously, Devin Williams at the back end of the bullpen. That's a big loss there. And I don't think they just did enough to really strengthen the team. I think they got really worse this offseason. But the thing is, with the Cubs' improvements that they made this offseason, I think that's really what's going to put the Cubs over the top of the Brewers. I just think the Cubs, and we saw it in the game against Arizona yesterday, their offense was on fire. They dropped 10 runs on the Diamondbacks. They had Ryan Nelson come in for Zach Allen, and Ryan Nelson was a guy that could have been the fifth starter. They were talking about trading Jordan Montgomery. He's out with Tommy John, so he's out anyways. But they were talking about maybe trading one of those guys like Brandon Pfaadt, who did get extended, or Zach Gallen, who's on the last year of his contract. So the thing is with Arizona is Ryan Nelson definitely could have been a fifth starter. Instead, he's in the bullpen, and we had to go against two really good pitchers, and the offense just exploded. So with that and the pitching, especially if we can get another pitcher, which I expect us to do at the deadline, that's really going to put the Cubs over the top over these other 4 teams, and that's why I think we're going to win the Central Division.
Yeah, no, I think that offense is definitely going to be clicking this year. It's very well rounded. Pete Armstrong has a lot of speed. Mike Bush has a lot of power. Dansby Swanson is really a 5-tool guy. Just a really well-rounded lineup that, I expect to score runs.
Yeah, and talk about Mike Bush. Again, he can really do it all. Like he has a real potential of being a Gold Glove defender. He has the potential to hit maybe 30 home runs. I know you're a big fan of Mike Bush. Dansby Swanson came back from surgery and he's looking really good. Nico Horner as well. So I think the Cubs are just far and away the best team, and I just think even on paper and just how they performed yesterday, I think that really just says a lot that we need to know. My really concern is just the starting pitching, but if they can get another pitcher, I have no worries.
Yeah, no, I definitely think Cubs are an easy pick to win the Central this year.
Yeah. All right, so we'll just recap our predictions for the Central. I have the Pittsburgh Pirates going 5th, the St. Louis Cardinals going 4th, the Cincinnati Reds going 3rd, the Brewers going 2nd, and the Cubs winning this division. Johnathan had the St. Louis Cardinals going last, the Pittsburgh Pirates going 4th, the Brewers going 3rd, the Reds going 2nd, and the Cubs winning this division. So a little bit of flip-flopping here. The first time I really think we've disagreed so far in this video. But with that, let's go to the National League West. And in 5th place, I don't think we're going to be doing any disagreeing here. It's going to be the Colorado Rockies.
Yeah, I mean, there's just not much to say about the Rockies at this point. Just got nothing going for them. Definitely contender to be the worst team in the league this year. I mean, I don't even know what to say about the Rockies. They're in just such a terrible position. One of the worst owners in baseball, play in, well, I wouldn't say one of the worst ballparks in baseball. Definitely pretty, but definitely a ballpark that's difficult to build a lineup around.
Yeah.
And just all in all, terrible position to be in if you're the Rockies.
There's just nothing going with the team. They do have some young guys on offense that could really make things interesting to an extent, but what do they really have? That's really what it comes down to. Chris Bryant, what are you going to get from him? Let's be real.
Yeah,
we're not going to get anything from the Rockies.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
I think
if you're going to watch the Rockies,
what'd you say?
I think if you're going to watch the Rockies, watch Ezekiel Tovar. Watch Ezekiel Tovar's at bats and then shut the game off.
Yeah, there you go.
I think that's kind of the only bright spot I could think of with the Rockies.
And then you're just even banking on that, so we don't even know yet.
Yeah.
So easily 5th place Rockies. Let's go to the team in 4th place. And I'll say this. The difference between this team and the Nationals is that this team is a lot older than the Nationals. The Nationals are in a rebuild coming out of it. But again, I just think this isn't an average 4th place team that's going to completely suck. I think they're going to be right around 500, maybe even above just a little bit. I will go with the San Francisco Giants to go 4th.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. And it is unfortunate because the Giants definitely are not a bad team. They play in an extremely tough division. If they were in, say the NL Central or the AL West, they could be competing.
Yeah.
But they just play in an absolutely brutal division. And they're just in a really unfortunate position because they're not a terrible team.
Yeah, and I like what they have going on too. They signed Willy Adames. The left side of that infield, I love it. They have Willy Adames at short, Matt Chapman at 3rd, and just bottom line, everything that's going on with them, even some of the pitchers that they have, I just really like this team. I think, like you said, put them in another division that's weaker, and they definitely could be competing for a playoff spot. I can think of a ton of teams that could be going 2nd, maybe 3rd in other divisions that are worse than the San Francisco Giants. That's really where I am with them.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And if you're the Giants, just kind of what do you do? Because the Dodgers are they're going to be good in the future. The Diamondbacks are going to be good in the future. Kind of hard to say with the Padres, but you know, Giants, they've either got to make a big move or they've got to just kind of stay where they're at because there's nothing that they can do about their situation. They play in the division they play in,
Yeah.
and I want to say they got to make the best of it, but kind of how do you do that when you're in that
Right.
situation?
Yeah, so very unfortunate for the Giants. And look, I'm rooting for them because I like what they have going on there. They were rumored with some pitchers. I at some point in the offseason, it was like, oh, do you think Corbin Burns could be going to the Giants? Nope, he goes to the Diamondbacks. There were just a ton of guys, and they're going to be. I definitely think they'll be in the mix for a starting pitcher as well, just because they were in rumors with it. Justin Verlander's just not going to be enough, in my opinion. And he's coming back from injury, so what are you really going to get from him? And especially where he's at in his career, he's over 40 years old.
Yeah, I think just Justin Verlander is just kind of gonna have like a quietly mid-season. Um, I like the Giants. I still think about that 109 win season they had.
No,
Um,
that was a really good year for them, and then they
that
just
was
lose
that
to
was
the
just a
Dodgers in
fun
Game
team to
5.
watch. That was a fun team to watch. I think this year's team will be a fun team to watch. Just
That division,
again, that division. Even if you win games, it's not going to be enough.
right? So with that, San Francisco, let's go to the team in third place. This could really go either way, but I'm a little bit more confident that the San Diego Padres are going to finish third here.
I'm going to agree with you there. Um, I think they're just a little worse than the Diamondbacks. Um, which is really unfortunate. You'll see why it's unfortunate later. When we talk about our playoff predictions.
Yeah.
But Padres, they're just I don't know what to say about the Padres because they can definitely be good for years to come, or they could have years like they had 2 years ago where they have a great team on paper but they just don't win. Um, Padres, I think they're going to be like this around like the same old Padres from last year. Maybe a little worse, but I think third place is definitely a good place to put the Padres.
Yeah. And look, they have a nice rotation. I know Yu Darvish is hurt, but they also have Joe Musgrove, Dylan Cease, Michael King, and Nick Pivetta. And then when he gets healthy, you have Yu Darvish there as well. So I think the San Diego Padres are in a good position. I think their offense is slightly worse, but you're going to get more from Jackson Merrill, and he's going to really elevate his offense. So losing Profar does hurt, but I do think Merrill can definitely replace some of that. But again, it's just what you said. Arizona, and I think that can really lead into our second place team, which is the Arizona Diamondbacks. Just really what it is. San Diego, I just don't think they're better than Arizona. So I think both of us can say Arizona's going to go second. So why don't we just talk about Arizona while we're at it?
Yeah, definitely. I think the Arizona Diamondbacks have a better team on paper than the Padres. Ketel Marte is probably going to be an MVP candidate again this year. Zach Gallen, very solid pitcher. Corbin Burns was a big ad this year.
Yeah.
Corbin Carroll is still a good ball player, and all around they just have a well-built team.
Yeah. And the thing is, too, with them, last year, remember, they missed on a tiebreaker with the Braves and the Mets. The Arizona Diamondbacks had the best offense last year. They just had trouble with their starting pitching, and they bring in Corbin Burns. They weren't even expected to bring in Corbin Burns. He lives in the Arizona area, and he said, I just want to go home and play with the Diamondbacks. Scott Boras, can you try to make something work? And even the front office was like, we don't need Corbin Burns, but we can see what we can do. They're able to come to an agreement, and they have a great 1-2 punch, Corbin Burns and Zach Allen. Granted, Zach Allen he really did struggle against the Chicago Cubs yesterday, but I think that's a fluke game from Zach Allen. He's going to be a lot better, and we'll see what happens with him in the future with the Diamondbacks. Because, like I said earlier, this is the last year of his deal. I don't think he's going to get traded, but it's possible. I don't know. I think they're going to want to keep him for the long run just so they can try to get one more year out of him at least. And then they had Merrill Kelly and Brennan Fought, and I forgot the last guy in the rotation's name. He's a lefty. If you watch Arizona, you know who I'm talking about. But regardless, they have a very solid pitching rotation. And then they had Ryan Nelson, who can definitely step in and be a starter if you need him to. Right now, he's in the bullpen. So I really like what I'm seeing from the Arizona Diamondbacks. You're going to get that same offense for the most part. They scored 6 runs. So Arizona's going to have a really good year.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I could see them winning around 90 games.
Yeah. I think they can win more than 90.
Yeah, no, definitely. Just a really potent offense, It's gonna be a team. I think they're gonna be fun to watch. I
Yeah.
definitely think they're gonna be fun to watch.
Because remember, they only won 89 without Corbin Burns, and then bring him in. They're going to be really solid. I think they can win maybe up to like 93, 94. So with that, we're going to go with the team that we have winning the NL West. And to be quite honest, do we even need to talk about them? It's the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, everything there to say about the Dodgers has been said.
Yeah,
They have on paper the best team in the league.
far and away.
Just not much to say about the Dodgers at this point.
Yeah, that's really what it is. We don't need to talk about the Dodgers. You could just look at them yourselves. They have everything, literally everything. Everyone, every free agent said, let's try to get me to LA, and they're there. They're a super team. They're going to win at least 110 games if all of them can stay healthy and they just play up to the hype they have. Just bottom line. And Shohei's not even pitching. And to be quite honest, he doesn't even need to be honest with you.
Yeah, even without Shohei, they probably have the best rotation in the league, even without him.
Exactly. And again, in the playoffs, you only have 4 pitchers. I wouldn't risk having Shohei pitch because you have Blake Snell, Yamamoto, Roki Sasaki, and in addition, they have Tyler Glasnow. Now, granted, they do have some of those guys have a lot of durability issues, but at the end of the day, if all of them can stay healthy, this is one of the best teams. I shouldn't even say one of the best team.
Yeah, no, they're absolutely, there's a reason they won the World Series last year.
Yeah.
They have the best built team in the league. And it's so crazy to think because they still have, top 10 farm system.
Exactly. They're ridiculous.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. The Dodgers will continue to be ridiculous for years to come.
Yeah. So with that, we both have the same predictions for the NL West. We have the Rockies going in 5th, the Giants going 4th, the Padres going 3rd, the Diamondbacks in 2nd, and the Dodgers winning this division. So in just a quick second, we will go on with our American League predictions. All right, welcome back to this Cubs 360 episode with Johnathan Conacher. And now with all our National League predictions set in stone, we will go to the American League. I guess we'll start with the American League East. And I'll just go with my predictions first because I actually did go back and forth with both of these teams. I don't expect much from either one, but originally, a couple weeks ago, I had one team going last, but now I'm switching my last place team. So just barely going in last place, I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Rays.
Yeah, and I'm going to stick with my last place team from 2 weeks ago and the Tampa Bay Rays. I'm going to say the Tampa Bay Rays. No, obviously the big thing to talk about, they're going to be playing in George Steinbrenner Field this year.
Yeah.
Minor league stadium. That's definitely something that's, brings down your spirits, having to play in a minor league stadium, seeing a hurricane devastate your home stadium, your home city. And, that's something they're going to have to deal with all year. And, they're playing in a field that has the same dimensions as, Yankee Stadium. And so it's something that's, definitely an adjustment, something you got to adjust to. And, But other than that, the Rays, again, they have a lineup that really does not stick out to me.
Yeah.
Shane McClanahan's coming back this year, but that offense is just not good.
Yeah. The only guy I can think of on the Rays is Hassan Kim, who they signed in free agency. Other than that, they really don't have anybody. I will say this though, Tampa always finds a way to have a decent team, but I do think this is like one of the years where they could try to find whatever they can and they just can't click together. It really sucks because I love their manager and Kevin Cash, one of the best managers in the game. And at the end of the day, they just have a very respectable team and you got to give them props for it. I love this team. I love watching the Rays just be that one team with the very low payroll and being one of the better teams in baseball for the last few years, but they're just at a point now where they're just not that anymore. So, unfortunately, I do have the Rays in last, and by no means am I going to say they're going to be terrible because I don't. I just they're going to kind of be like what St. Louis is going to be, in my opinion, except they're not in the position St. Louis is in. They're going to have like a mid 70 win record. That's kind of where they're going to be, and they're just going to end up in last. That's really what they're going to end up.
Yeah, no, I think you've hit the head, or I think you've hit the nail right on the head there. I think, we're in agreement on the Rays. Just, not really there's not really a whole lot they're going to do this year. It's going to be a quiet team. They're going to go out quietly.
Yeah. So with that, we have the Rays going last, and we can go to the fourth place team, which is now the team that I originally had in last, and I think you had them in fourth as well 2 weeks ago. We have the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, I'm sticking with the Toronto Blue Jays in last place. Seems like they're in on every free agent ever, but never get them.
If I could
You
just
know,
interrupt real quick, I think that's a negotiation tactic. I think it's just like some joke that they have. They try to. I think it's a Scott Boras thing. Like I don't genuinely believe the Blue Jays are in on these guys. I think they're just leverage.
yeah,
I just see it so many
I get what you're
times.
saying. I definitely see what you're saying, but um, the Blue Jays, I don't think they haven't gotten better since last year, but I also don't think they got worse. They traded for Andres Jimenez. Um, Bo Bichette just had a terrible season last year. To his standards, he had a terrible season. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. seems like he wants out. Um,
Yeah.
they lost Danny Jansen.
Oh, he went to Tampa as well. That's another
Yeah.
guy that I forgot about.
They added Max Scherzer, but what does that really do?
It's the same as Verlander. He's just way too old. What is he going to really do on a team like Toronto?
Yeah, like I don't think, adding Max Scherzer really makes your team any better. Obviously, doesn't make it any worse, but that's kind of where the Blue Jays are at this point. They didn't get better and they didn't really get worse. So they're just gonna finish fourth place.
Yeah. And I do want to update because I just checked the score. They're up 6-2 against Baltimore against the 40-year-old Charlie Morton. So I was just saying if they lost to Charlie Morton, I mean, geez. They lost 12-2 to Zach Eflin in Baltimore. Um, I just don't have any hope for this team. I just think they're not good. They really aren't. But they're not in a position where they're going to be better, or I mean, excuse me, they're not going to be worse than the Rays. But at the same time, this team is just uninspiring, in my opinion. Their front office is, in my opinion, the worst in the league. Ross Atkins is just a horrible, horrible GM, and that's just really how I see it with the Blue Jays. I think those guys were in charge with Cleveland. They ruined that team. They're ruining the Blue Jays. What you're seeing with the Blue Jays is just incompetence, and that's really what it is.
Yeah, and it definitely doesn't help that to me they play in the ugliest stadium in the league.
Yeah.
Um, I think we've really said all there is to say about the Blue Jays. You ready to move
Yeah.
on to third place?
Yeah. So in third place, I'm gonna be honest with you. This could really go in any order. I think all three of these teams have a legit case to win the AL East, but just based off how they're constructed just for this year and what they put together in the offseason, I don't know if it's going to click right away. So just barely, I'm going to go with the Boston Red Sox to go third.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. And I like what you said about them, not clicking right away because this is a very different Boston team. You
It
know,
is.
a lot happened in the offseason for Boston, adding Garrett Crochet, adding Alex Bregman, losing Tyler O'Neill. This is just a really just different Boston team, adding a Roldis Chapman. And, it's definitely going to be interesting to see how they play together at the start. They've already kind of had problems with Devers refusing to move to DH.
Yeah.
Um, but it's definitely gonna um definitely something to watch out for. I think they'll get better as the year goes on,
Yeah.
but I think this is a team that's gonna start slow.
Yeah, they did get the win. On opening day, Garrett Crochet pitched. They have Walker Buehler in the rotation as well. I think he's only signed for 1 year, but still. The thing is, their offense is really good. I like it. Devers did move to DH, so Bregman has third. They have a ton of prospects coming up along the way. So they have some guys that could be MLB ready, a guy in the outfield, a guy at second, and then not to mention you have Tristan Casas at first base, Trevor Story at shortstop. We'll see what happens with him. And then obviously Bregman at third. You have Jarren Duran. And then I do want to talk about this guy because he's a very interesting guy to talk about. He's on injury right now, but Masataka Yoshida. I like Yoshida personally, but the thing is he going to be able to find a spot in the lineup with the Red Sox with how they're constructed right now, along with the prospects?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's just gonna be a kind of bench utility player. He showed it last year. He can play a couple different positions. Um, I think he's a pretty valuable guy to have on the team. Kind of
Definitely.
like a DJ LeMahieu type of guy. Um, the guy I want to talk about is Brian Bayo. I just want to give a shout out to him because this kid, this kid is going to be nice. I really like him. He's a Red Sox, so I can only like him so much, but I
Right.
really like what I've seen from him.
Yeah. It's kind of how I am with Ellie De La Cruz. Like, I can only like him so much, but I'm a big fan of the guy. The Cubs and the Reds are rivalry, so like I really can't be a big fan of him, but that's kind of how I feel about De La Cruz to that guy with you. So Boston, in my opinion, will go third. And the problem with Yoshida in the utility role is he just makes too much money to do that. I don't know what LeMahieu's contract was, but I think Yoshida's making a lot of money. So I don't know if he can really be in a position where he can be utility role. But at the end of the day, if Devers can move to DH, I definitely think Yoshida would definitely be open to doing whatever's best for the team.
Yeah, no, I definitely see what you're saying there.
He could maybe get an outfield spot, maybe in center field.
Hmm.
They have Brayu in right field. He had a couple home runs in that first game against Texas. So maybe there is a legit starting spot for Yoshida, and you never know once he gets back from injury. But bottom line, this is a really, really nice team. I'm really excited to see how the Red Sox can put it all together. So with that, I will go with a team in second place, and I'm going to be very honest with you. I switched my prediction with this. In my opinion, and this isn't even because of the team I have in first. I have the New York Yankees going second and Baltimore winning the division. But the reason why I have Baltimore winning the division is not because of them, it's because of Garrett Cole's injury.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but you see the posters behind me.
Yeah,
I'm a Yankees fan. I got to put the Yankees first. Obviously, the Garrett Cole injury is a huge loss, but I think Max Fried is definitely capable to step up into that ace role. Um, it just kind of falls on the rest of that rotation. They like what they saw out of Will Warren. Um, but I'm gonna hold off just for now about talking about the Yankees. I want to talk about my second place team, the Baltimore Orioles. And so the thing with the Baltimore Orioles is, like the Blue Jays, they didn't really get better or worse. Maybe they got a little worse, losing Anthony Santander, losing Corbin Burns. But I think Tyler O'Neill was a really good addition for them. And
Yeah, and he had a home
just
run.
for opening day home run, now that you mentioned that, 7 straight seasons with an opening day home run. That's an insane stat.
Yeah,
Like, it's definitely a weird one, but
something
just
noteworthy.
props to him. That's a cool thing. That's definitely a cool thing. That's a cool record to have. Um, but other than that, Orioles, I don't think got that much better this year. Definitely didn't get all that worse. But I think it's kind of going to be a similar situation to last year, where they just struggled to win games at the end of summer.
Yeah. And it was really tough for me to put the Yankees in second because if Cole was healthy, then hands down I'm putting the Yankees in first. But again, Max Fried could definitely be that good replacement for Garrett Cole. So I think there is a legit case for the Yankees to go in first place. And at the end of the day, I would not be surprised if they do end up in first place. But I'm just being a little cautious right now because I know Stanton's hurt, Luis Gill's out until I believe the All-Star break, and then Cole's out for the year with Tommy John. And then you have Max Fried in there, and I think Max Fried is going to do a phenomenal job with the Yankees. But I just I don't trust them right now. I definitely think by the time the All-Star break rolls around and the Yankees are doing good, I'll have a definitely a different look on them, and they could definitely win that division. But just the way I'm seeing it right now, it's just the injuries right now that the Yankees have just concern me. But at the end of the day, they could still end up winning this division, but I'm just not ready to put them there yet.
Yeah, I mean, Yankees, I think it's all just going to depend on their first half start. They usually start the year hot. Last year at the All-Star break, best record in the American League. Judge seems to love the month of May for whatever reason. The Yankees as a whole seem to love the month of May. Um, but Yankees are usually a team that starts off pretty hot and then slows down. But they definitely got to start off hot until they get some of these guys back. Like Clark Schmidt is starting the year on the IL. Luis Heel, obviously. Stanton, obviously. So they just kind of got to hold out until those guys come back. But at the same time, the Yankees front office, they seem to like what they've seen out of these guys stepping up. You got Cabrera over at third. Um, Will Warren on the mound, and Dominguez in left field.
Yeah.
So I think it is going to depend on how they start the year and just how competitive they are during the trade deadline. They usually are. They usually try to go after guys at the deadline. But I
And I
think this
definitely think they
year,
still will.
yeah, I think they still will. And I think they definitely need to. Because they do have some holes that they can absolutely fill.
Yeah. So, and again, Max Fried could technically be a replacement for Garrett Cole this season. Um, and at the end of the day, they're going to do whatever it takes because they're the New York Yankees. That's really what it is.
Yeah, as long as they have that Steinbrenner cash flowing in, they're going to try to be competitive.
Yeah. Heck, they offered Soto 760 mil, just barely missed out. So
Hmm.
I definitely think they'll do whatever it takes to get back to the World Series and try to even win one. Um, I think it's going to be tougher without Garrett Cole. I think with Garrett Cole, they definitely are a a good bet to win the American League pennant this year, but we're just gonna have to see how it goes.
Yeah, definitely. You're absolutely right.
All right, so with that, the American League East, both of us have Tampa Bay going last, Toronto going fourth, Boston going third. I have the Yankees going second, Baltimore winning the division. Johnathan has Baltimore going second, and the Yankees winning the division. So with that, we can move to the American League Central. This is going to be one of the more interesting divisions to talk about, in my opinion. We can start in last, and no disagreement here. I think last place, even though they did get the win against the Angels, I think we're looking at the Chicago White Sox going last again.
Yeah, the Chicago White Sox, obviously worst team in baseball last year. Broke the record for most losses in a season, and lost Garrett Crochet this offseason. And they look good against the Angels, but again, it's the same time. It's the Angels. I think anybody could look good against them. I don't know if they're gonna lose as many games as last year, but they're definitely not gonna win a whole lot more games.
Yeah.
This could potentially be the year that you finally see a Luis Robert trade, but at this point, with how injury prone he's been, it's going to be hard to get a lot for him.
Yeah.
If they wanted to trade him, they should have done it a lot sooner. But he's going to have to stay on the field. That lineup isn't good. The rotation isn't good. The bullpen isn't good. Just nothing's good. I think Andrew Benintendi is still their highest paid player, and he's one of like the worst players in WAR, I think. He ranks bottom. He was like bottom 10 in the league last year in WAR for eligible players. It's not a whole lot more to say about the White Sox.
Yeah. So I do agree with you on a lot. The only thing I'll say about the White Sox is the only guy that you'd really say stands out besides Luis Robert is maybe Sean Burke, who started yesterday. And if he has a good year for the White Sox, maybe they trade him as well. Who knows? But the thing is, they lost 121 games last year. I think it's tougher to lose 121 than win like 115, in my opinion. I don't think the Dodgers are going to win 115, but even then, it's even tougher to lose 120 like the White Sox did last year. So I definitely think they'll win at least like maybe 50 games. I don't know how much more they're going to win after 50, but it's really tough to see this team finishing with a worse record because, like I said, it's almost impossible to just win 41 games.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So we could go to the fourth place team now, I feel. And there's a ton of teams that you could really put here. I think the top four can almost go in any order. Almost. But I think in fourth place, I'm going to go with the Minnesota Twins.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. This is not the Twins team of old, not the 2019 to 2022 Twins where, they were always competing for the AL Central. Just again, this is a team where not a lot of bright spots. Byron Buxton still struggles to stay on the field. Just really as a team, they're not built well. They're not built to win games.
Yeah, and then look at Carlos Correa too. Just ever since he left Houston, I don't think he's really been the same player. He's had like moments where he's looked like Houston Carlos Correa, but again, just nothing way too phenomenal.
It's really been interesting to see just how far they've fallen in just a few years.
Yeah, let alone last year.
Yeah.
Like at some point they were like competing for that division, and then all of a sudden they have like a generational fall off and miss the playoffs. I definitely think their manager, Rocco Baldelli, could definitely be fired. I thought he should have been fired at the end of last season with the way they lost, but here he is still with a job. Minnesota is just, they're going to be in a very mediocre spot, which is really not going to cut it in this division. So therefore, I have them going in fourth place.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, we can go to third place in the American League Central. And this may or may not surprise you. These top three teams all made the playoffs, but I think we're going to see once again in third place the Detroit Tigers.
Yeah, this is a division where, again, the top three teams could kind of go in any order. The Tigers, I will also place at third. Getting Jack Flaherty back was a big add. They had a really tough time in the postseason last year with pitching. They kind of ran that one-man rotation with Tariq Skubal and then, just relying on their bullpen for the rest of those games. I think they only declared two starting pitchers last year at the beginning of the postseason. Um, but it was definitely an interesting strategy because they did win a series.
Yeah.
But yeah, getting Flaherty back was definitely a good add. They've got a decent lineup. I think Riley Green is an absolute dog. I'm a big fan of him. But I think the other two teams just are a little better, a little more experienced, and I think it's going to take at least 1 or 2 more years before the Tigers really have a chance to win the AL Central.
Yeah, and I agree with you there. I think with the Tigers, getting Flaherty back is big, and I think he's pitching against the LA Dodgers today as well. So he won the World Series with the Dodgers and goes back to Detroit, pitches against the Dodgers. That's going to be pretty interesting to see. But the thing is with them, you just said it, they're just not better than the other two teams. Um, could they be a playoff team again? Possible, but it's
Yeah,
going to be tougher
absolutely,
this
they
time.
could.
But the problem is too, like they had to go on a crazy run to get in. Are they going to be able to like do that if they don't start the way they want to? That's just my concern with them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you definitely make a good point.
All right, so in third place we have the Tigers. Now we have the top two teams. Now this legitimately could go in any order. I do think the way both of these off seasons went, in my opinion, I'm gonna go by a hair. The Kansas City Royals to win this division, and the Cleveland Guardians will go second.
Yeah, and now if you remember 2 weeks ago, I said the Cleveland Guardians were going to win this division, but kind of the more I look at it and really break down these lineups in the offseason, I think I'm going to put the Royals to, like you said, barely win the division because the Andres Jimenez move with the Guardians, I didn't really get that. I didn't really understand why they traded him. I don't really think they got that good of a return for him. Um, obviously, I have probably the best closer in baseball in Emmanuel Clase. Jose Ramirez will absolutely be an MVP candidate again this year. But I think they just could have done a little bit more this offseason to help themselves.
Yeah,
And I think just the Royals are just barely going to win more games than them.
yeah. I just look at the lineups. Not to mention Cleveland also has a very good reliever. I forgot his name, but put him next to Emmanuel Clase, and that's disgusting, in my opinion. But yeah, and then you have Shane Bieber as well going back into the rotation for Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
And then, see, this is the big problem I have with Cleveland. They traded Josh Naylor and got Carlos Santana to replace him. Like, I just really didn't understand that, in my opinion. I think Josh Naylor was one of the better, like, offensive players for the Guardians. I understand Santana probably provides better defense, but at the same time, he is a lot older than Josh Naylor. And even yesterday, Naylor had an RBI for the Arizona Diamondbacks against the Cubs. So, in my opinion, I think bottom line, Cleveland just didn't do enough to improve. I know they lost in the ALCS in 5 games to the Yankees, but just seeing the moves that the Kansas City Royals made, who lost in the division series to the Yankees, um, and really that's highlighted by the acquisition of Johnathan India from the Cincinnati Reds. They traded Brady Singer to get him, and I think that's gonna make one of the better middle infields in the game with him and Bobby Witt Jr. So I'm excited to see how that goes. And bottom line, you're just gonna see more from the Kansas City Royals overall. I do have a couple questions with Seth Lugo if he's gonna be able to repeat what he was able to have last season. He was a Cy Young finalist, but the thing with Seth Lugo is he's up there in age, so I don't know if he's going to be able to reciprocate that.
I think he absolutely has the potential to, Um, Seth Lugo is a really good pitcher, He is getting up in age, but I think he's definitely got a few. I think he has, more good years left in him. And this Royals team is, they're going to stick around for the next few years, and they're going to be very good this year.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch the Kansas City Royals. So with that, both of us have the White Sox going in fifth. We have the Minnesota Twins going fourth, the Tigers going third, We both have the Cleveland Guardians going second and the Kansas City Royals winning this division. So we have one more division to talk about, and that is the American League West. And going in last place, in my opinion, 2 weeks ago, I was kind of going back and forth with both of these teams, but now I can really have a lot more confidence in this pick the more I look at it. And last place, once again, it's going to be the Angels.
Yeah, these bottom two teams in the Angels and Athletics, they're definitely both bad, but to me, the Angels are just worse. I like what the Athletics have going on in that lineup, and I just can't say the same for the Angels. As long as they have Anthony Rendon under that huge contract, I don't really have anything good to say about the Angels.
Yeah. And then I know they signed a Yusei Kikuchi in free agency. They got a ton of other guys. They got Kyle Hendricks from the Cubs, but Kyle Hendricks. I mean, I love Kyle Hendricks, but he was awful last year. Every time he stepped on the mound, and I think what's really bittersweet about him is he was the last remaining player from that 2016 team. There are no more players from that team anymore, but I think with Hendricks being the last guy and just having the year, it was just kind of tough because he's getting up there in age. He didn't have a good year. The Angels give him a shot, and they also got Tim Anderson, Yohan Moncada from the White Sox in free agency as well. And I believe I'm missing a bat. They signed Travis d'Arnaud as well. But other than that, and they got Jorge Soler from the Braves. So in some ways, you could say they did improve a little bit. But the thing is, they lost 99 games, which was a franchise record for the most losses. Are they going to be better? I'm going to say yes, but by how much, though?
Yeah, and I really hate to say it, but Mike Trout staying on the field is always going to be a question.
Yeah.
At this point, year in and year out, it's going to be a question of can Mike Trout stay on the field? Because when he does stay on the field, he is a very good player. He can win a game or two by himself for you, but you know, just this Angels team, especially the pitching rotation, is just not good.
Yeah.
And I don't think their ads were really all that good besides, Travis d'Arnaud and Jorge Soler. Like, really, what does Tim Anderson add? Really,
Right.
what does Yohan Moncada add at this point?
Yeah. And Moncada just couldn't stay healthy with the White Sox. Just
Mm-hmm.
big problems with them. And I do think it's interesting too because Rendon is obviously a third baseman, but so is Moncada. So is Rendon just gonna sit on the bench for what? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a
According to him,
that's a conversation I want to have personally, Anthony Rendon.
according to him, he's lost his love for the game of baseball. Which, you can do that, but when you're getting that paid that much money,
Yeah.
I don't think that's really something you should be saying. You're getting paid, people, you're getting paid the amount of money that people couldn't dream of in their lifetime. And, you're kind of saying that you've lost love for the sport. I get, not liking the sport anymore, but maybe keep that one to yourself.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like Rendon, I mean, even getting that contract, it was kind of ridiculous from the start as well. And it was terrible. He won the World Series with Washington, then he goes to the Angels. And again, it's just been something different with him. It's always been injuries. It's always been this. It's always been that. I don't know. And nobody's going to touch his contract either. And I don't know if the Angels are in a position where they can release him. I don't even know if they can according to his contract. I haven't really looked at it, but I know he's making a lot more than what he's providing on the field. And to be honest, he's not even on the field. So with that, the Angels are they're in last. So in fourth place, and you touched on this team a little bit, and I'm going to talk about them a little bit. I think the Athletics are going to go fourth, and I'm just going to go with my opening thoughts on this team. They have potential to be a sleeper. I don't think they're. See, a lot of people think that this team could really do something. I don't see that. I think they'll be right around 500. They got a Luis Severino, and they have a couple guys on offense. They have Shea Langoliers, they have Brent Rooker, you name it, all those guys. And I think I mentioned Mason Miller at the back end of the bullpen. So the Athletics have something going, and what's really interesting is they're also in a minor league park, which that's because of the owner. But I definitely think that can really help out some of those offensive players for the A's. So therefore, I definitely think they could really benefit from that.
Yeah, and again, they're in a minor league park, just like the Rays, and that definitely puts a damper on morale. Having to use minor league facilities, but this isn't terrible offensive lineup. Shea Langoliers, Brent Rooker, and Lawrence Butler. I think those three are going to have good seasons. Maybe Brent Rooker gets moved at the trade deadline. Maybe Shea Langoliers does. I don't think Lawrence Butler would just yet, just because of his age. But those are three guys that I'm definitely excited to watch.
This is the thing about Shea Langoliers, and this is pretty tough for me because I've dreamed of watching Shea Langoliers in a Cub uniform, but watching Miguel Amaya just improve the way he has, it's like, do you really need a catcher? That's kind of where I'm at. I'm not gonna say Miguel Amaya is the catcher of the future, but the way he's playing, I definitely think he could. So therefore, we'll see what happens. But the thing is, I don't think they're gonna move um Rooker and um Shea Langoliers because it just really seems like you really have to overpay to get them, and I just don't see any of them, getting moved.
Right.
So
No, I
I
definitely
think
see
the
what
A's
you're
are just gonna
saying.
stay where they are.
No, I get what you're saying, but they could definitely get a lot for them, if a team is
Absolutely.
willing to give up a lot.
I could see it definitely, without a doubt. So A's, I think both of us have in fourth place. Um, in third place, this could get very interesting, but I I said this 2 weeks ago. It was very tough, but in my opinion, I'm just barely gonna pick the Seattle Mariners to go third.
Yeah, um, we touched on this a few weeks ago. Um, the Mariners, they're just a team that struggles to put runs up, for
Yeah,
whatever reason, they don't have a bad lineup on paper. Cal Raleigh, Julio Rodriguez, all those guys, they're not bad hitters. It just seems, like their sequencing can never push runs across the plates. T-Mobile Park is a very pitcher-friendly ballpark. It's definitely hard to play um, half your games there, but um, at the end of the day, you kind of got to build your lineup so that maybe take a page out of the 2015 Royals book where you prioritize speed and contact, so you can manufacture runs in that sense. But it seems that the Mariners have kind of just taken, have just kind of honed in on pitching. And when you're in such a pitcher friendly park, I don't think that should really be your main focus. I think you should develop pitchers to pitch in that park because it's definitely an easy park to pitch in.
I agree with you there. So they the problem is the Seattle Mariners just could not put runs up, and their pitching was what they had one of the best rotations in the game. They have Luis Castillo, Logan Gilbert. They have Brian Wu, Bryce Miller, and George Kirby. That is disgusting. I think you could definitely move one of those guys and get some offensive players. They were really looking at some offensive players in a trade for like Luis Castillo because there was a lot of trade rumors surrounding him. I definitely think there are some teams, like I said earlier, that could look for some starting pitching. So if you get some starting pitching in there, um, you could move that, and Seattle could definitely capitalize on that. So they have Randy Rosarena, Julio Rodriguez, Cal Riley. So you have at least a couple guys that you can get some good offense from. But the thing is, I just don't have confidence enough in them where they could be able to get some offense going. So therefore, that's why I have them in third.
Yeah, no, and we definitely agree on that front. Mariners, they just got to find a way to push runs across the board. Like they have those players who can, and maybe do what the Orioles did. Play around with the dimensions of your ballpark. Obviously you can't do it now, and it's already opening day, but maybe that's something to consider in the future for them.
Yeah. So I know the Orioles have done a lot of renovating, especially in left field at Camden Yards. And again, T-Mobile Park is just one of the more pitcher-friendly parks, one of the nicer stadiums as well. But again, it just really benefits the pitching, and that's just really what the Mariners are focusing on. And they have an internal budget, so the owner's not doing anything, and the GM is a scapegoat. It's kind of like what Jed Hoyer is with Tom Ricketts. But the thing is, the Cubs are a lot more competitive than the Mariners. That's where they're at. So with where the Mariners are at, they just didn't do enough to improve enough where I can put them in the top two. Speaking of the top two, I think we can get to those right now. Winning this division, they did lose, but I think we're going to expect a big bounce back year from this team. I really like the Texas Rangers to win this division.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. To me, last year was definitely a fluke year for the Texas Rangers. Um, you know, I think we're going to see a team similar to that World Series team 2 years ago. They have just an incredibly good lineup. Having Jonah Heim as your ninth hitter in the lineup, that's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Up and down that lineup, it's just good hitters. You know, they're a team, where I'm expecting them to be at the top of runs scored, at the top of home runs, just really at the top of pretty much every offensive category, and that pitching rotation is good. That bullpen maybe could use a little work, but it's not terrible. This is a well-built team, and they're going to show that last year was a fluke.
Yeah. I'm in full agreement with you there. And not to mention their backup catcher is Kyle Higashioka. And you saw what he did with the Padres. I think Higashioka is going to have a good year as a backup catcher with the Rangers with Jonah Heim. And I don't really need to get into the lineup because I think a lot of us know, but I think Nate Lowe was the only guy that's gone from the Rangers to the Nationals. They brought in Jake Burger from the Marlins. They have Jock Peterson now. So bottom line, this is a really solid lineup for the Texas Rangers, and I definitely think you're going to see them back in the playoffs and winning this division.
Yeah, no, I can't wait to watch them in October. Definitely going to be a great offensive team, going to put up a lot of runs.
Yeah, so I do want to mention just this, and then we'll talk about Houston, who we have in second. But my only little concern is maybe their starting pitching. They have Eovaldi, but the thing is, are you going to get Jacob DeGrom back? And can you just trust the other bottom half of your rotation to just be serviceable just enough?
Yeah, no, I definitely see what you're saying. I think Jacob DeGrom is going to have a good year as long as he stays on the field. He's another guy fighting off father time, but it's kind of shown that when he's on the field, his age really is not affecting him all that much.
Yeah. So I think there's our talk with Texas. So they're going to win the division, and then we'll talk about Houston. The thing with Houston is I just don't think they're going to go away. I really don't. So granted, they do have um, Cam Smith, the Cubs prospect in right field. I think they have Altuve in left field. I don't know who they have playing second, but that, in my opinion, is just weird.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel bad for them sticking Altuve in left field. Um, he kind of looks lost out there. As a Yankee fan, it's kind of funny to watch, but um, you know, like I can see why he made the move, but um, he definitely looks lost out there in left field.
Yeah, and not to mention, replacing Bregman is Isaac Paredes, who came in the deal. Paredes just wasn't a fit for the Cubs. I think he's gonna definitely rake with that left field wall in Houston.
So he was able to really hit some home runs from that left field wall in Tampa. Goes to the Cubs, struggles mightily. I definitely think you're going to see a bounce back from Isaac Paredes. And then the other guy they got in the Tucker deal, Hayden Wesneski. Wesneski is the fifth start in the rotation, which, as a Cub fan watching him, I think is a little questionable because watching him be a starter, it was kind of brutal. He was better off as a relief pitcher. I'm rooting for the kid. I'm rooting for Cam Smith as well. But again, he's a third base prospect in right field. How's that going to translate? You know what you're probably going to get from his offense. I think he's going to be a really phenomenal player. Cam Smith was the only guy in that deal that I was like, man, if we could try to keep him, I think you try to. But again, you're getting Kyle Tucker. So again,
Right, and I just want to touch on Isaac Paredes real quick. He's definitely going to be an interesting player to watch his home and road splits. I think he's definitely going to take advantage of that left field wall in Minute Maid. He's probably going to struggle on the road. He struggled in most ballparks that weren't Tampa last year.
yeah, look at Wrigley Field for an example. We saw it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. But the Astros as a whole are just kind of going to be a pesky team. They're going to find ways to win games. And I just want to say something about Jose Altuve real quick. In left field, I think just about every runner tagging up from third base is going to get the green light on Jose Altuve's arm.
I could definitely see that. I never thought that made any sense. I think I did see something that Altuve would play left field if that meant Bregman coming back, because again, there was rumors that Bregman would be playing second if Rafael Devers did not give up the DH. So there was a possibility that Bregman would play second next to Paredes and Altuve would go to left field. But now that Bregman's gone, I thought that would mean, okay, that means Altuve is going to stay at second. That's not the case.
Yeah,
So
no,
that's
this is
interesting, in my
definitely.
opinion.
Yeah, no, this is definitely like an end of career move. I don't really know how long Jose Altuve has left. Definitely gonna feel weird once he's gone, not seeing him play for the Astros.
Yeah, only player left from that 2017 team. And by the way,
Yeah,
for Houston to be competitive, you're going to need him and Yordan Alvarez to really, get some runs in, because those two guys. And then maybe you do get some bounce back efforts from Jeremy Pena as a shortstop. I remember his rookie year after Carlos Correa left. Jeremy Pena had a phenomenal rookie year. He won ALCS MVP, won the World Series in his first year, was the MVP of the World Series as well. So I definitely think there's a world where you can see Jeremy Pena bounce back.
yeah, no. Just Astros. It's gonna be a team that is gonna be hard to fight off this year.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, they've been arguably the most dominant team over the last decade. And the thing is, I know there's a lot of regression going on with this team. You could feel it, but the thing is, it just feels like it's not going to go away anytime soon. That's just how resilient that team is. And then look, they have Josh Hader as their closer. They lost Ryan Presley to Chicago, but again, Josh Hader, who a few years ago was the best reliever in the game, but now with guys like Class A, Devin Williams, Mason Miller, I don't really know if you can really say Josh Hader is the best relief pitcher, but he is still up there for one of the best.
Yeah, definitely. No, I absolutely agree with you.
I do want to talk about that strikeout he had on Juan Soto to end that game. That was just filthy.
Yeah, that definitely made me happy as a Yankees fan.
Yeah, that was pretty special there. So just to recap our AL West predictions, we both have the Angels going in fifth, the A's going in fourth. We have the Mariners going third, the Astros going second, and the Texas Rangers winning this division. So with that, those are all our American League predictions. I think now we can go to our playoff predictions. So I'll start with my predictions. I'll start with the American League, then I'll go to the National League. But in the American League as the 1 seed, I'm going to go with the Texas Rangers. Number 2 seed, I'm going to go with the Kansas City Royals. The 3rd seed, I'm going to go with the Baltimore Orioles. fourth seed, I'm going to go with the Cleveland Guardians. And then in the fifth spot, I would go with the New York Yankees. And in the sixth spot, and this is going to be really, really tough. There are a ton of teams you could really put here. But at the end of the day, I just really, really like what I'm seeing, at least on paper, from the Boston Red Sox. So with that, I had the Red Sox getting that final wild card spot. And that's really where I have it.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you on the first seed. Rest of it, I think, gonna deviate a little, but first seed, absolutely Texas Rangers. I think they got probably the best team on paper for the American League. Second seed, I'm gonna go with the Yankees.
Yeah.
Third seed, Royals. Fourth, I'd say Guardians. Fifth, Orioles. And now that sixth spot really does just come down between the Tigers and the Red Sox. And they're both going to be fighting tooth and nail. Tigers, want to build off their run from last year. Red Sox want to make it back to the playoffs. But I think with that addition of Jack Flaherty, I think that's going to push Detroit just a little bit over Boston and steal that sixth wild card spot.
All right, so that's how we have it. So there we go for the American League. I'll go with the National League now. The first seed, I don't think we need to talk about it. It'll be the Dodgers. I think the Phillies will get the second seed. The Cubs will get the third seed. The fourth seed, I'm going to go with the Arizona Diamondbacks. The fifth seed, I will go with the Atlanta Braves. And the sixth seed, I will go with the New York Mets.
I think ours are mostly the same. Dodgers first, Phillies second, Cubs third. Diamondbacks fourth, Braves fifth, and now that sixth spot is going to come down between Padres and Mets, and it's really tough. I really hate to say it. I'm gonna go with the Mets, and I really hate to say that because I would have loved to see another Padres Dodgers playoff series. That one was an absolute blast to watch last year. But I think the Mets will win it on a tiebreaker. I think it's definitely going to be close.
I wouldn't be surprised if San Diego makes it and the Mets missed it, to be honest. I was almost weighing that option of having the Mets miss and the Padres going in, but I just really couldn't really pick against the Mets, just the way their offense is, and maybe if you just get somewhat decent pitching from Senga and Minaya, and then hopefully another guy in that rotation can step up. But I think we're pretty much in agreement with those picks. So the only teams that we're disagreeing in the playoffs right now is Detroit and Boston. So I'll start in the American League. Starting off with the Orioles and the Red Sox. And just the way these teams are constructed, I will pick the Boston Red Sox to win in 3 games.
Okay. And I probably should have wrote this down because I don't know what my matchup would be.
You had Detroit and Kansas City here.
Detroit and Kansas City. This definitely a weird matchup. Well, I shouldn't say weird because it's a division matchup. One we'll see a lot of during the regular season. I say weird. Yeah, I do say weird because I could really see this series going anyway. Like I could see it being Tigers in 2, Royals in 2, Tigers in 3, or Royals in 3. But I think the Tigers could definitely steal a game, but I'm gonna go Royals in 3.
That's a good pick in my opinion. And then my next prediction between the Guardians and the Yankees. I love the Guardians. I really do. I love what they have cooking. I know Jed Hoyer really looks up to the Guardians. I know Cleveland and Chicago have always made deals together. They were in the 2016 World Series, but I definitely think, even though the Yankees had the injuries, I also think they had the experience, and they definitely might be getting Giancarlo Stanton and Luis Gil back in time for October. So I'm going to pick the New York Yankees to win in 3 games.
All right, and now my next matchup, Cleveland versus Baltimore. No, I think Baltimore is just going to continue their struggles in the playoffs. I don't think they won a playoff game last year. No, I think they won 2 years ago,
No, they got swept.
but no, they did get swept last year.
So
Or 2
whenever
years
the
ago.
last time they made it,
Yeah.
way before that, I don't even remember
Yeah.
the last time they won a playoff game.
Yeah, I think they're going to continue their struggles. I think they get swept again this year by the Guardians in 2 games.
All right. So with that, I'll just go with my American League predictions now. So just the way the playoffs are set up, that means I would have the Red Sox going against the Royals, and I would have the Rangers taking on the Yankees. It's the way the playoffs are set up. It's not the lower seed versus the higher seed. It's just however it goes from there. So with that, I'll start with the Rangers and Yankees, and I think the Yankees will try to make it competitive. But again, I think this is definitely a series where you need Garrett Cole. I definitely think they can steal a game, but I just love the roster the Rangers have, so I'm going to pick the Rangers to win in 4 games.
Okay. And 4, I think my first matchup would be Rangers versus
Guardians.
Guardians. Yeah, Guardians. I could see that going in 5 games. I could see it being 3 games. So I think I'm just going to go right in the middle and say Rangers in 4.
I like that pick too. I just think both the Yankees and the Guardians are good enough to steal a game, but at the end of the day, Texas is just the better team in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, with my last division series prediction between the Red Sox and the Royals, I think the Royals have more experience now, and I just like what they have going on. I love what the Red Sox built, but again, how the problem is the chemistry. How is it going to click? So the playoffs are a lot different than the regular season, and maybe the Red Sox will find that chemistry throughout the year and maybe throughout the playoffs. But I'm going to pick Kansas City Royals to win in 5 games.
Yeah. No. I like that. And I'll just lead into my next game, which is Yankees versus Royals. We saw it last year, saw what happened. I think it'll be the same outcome. I'm going to take the Yankees in 4 games.
That's fair. So with that, my ALCS is between the Kansas City Royals and the Texas Rangers. Your ALCS is the New York Yankees and the Texas Rangers. And in my ALCS, I think there's a much better team, a lot more experience than the other, even though both now you can say do have experience. But I think the Texas Rangers will go back to the World Series and they will beat the Kansas City Royals in the American League Championship Series in 6 games.
I have obviously the Rangers versus Yankees, and really hate to pick against my own team. I think the Yankees will be competitive enough to take it to 7 games, but there's also a possibility that they could get swept in 4 games. But I'm gonna say, and there's even a chance that they win that series. Anything can happen.
Anything can happen.
Anything can happen in October. But I'm gonna say the Texas Rangers in 7 games.
All right, so both of us have the Texas Rangers going to the World Series, and with that, I will go with my National League predictions. So my 6 seed was the Mets, my 3 seed was the Cubs. I think that was your prediction as well. So both of us have the Mets taking on the Cubs in the Wild Card Series, and with that, I'm going to. Obviously, I'm biased here, but I think the Cubs are just a better team. They have the better starting pitching, in my opinion, and I definitely think by October they'll get another starting pitcher to definitely complement with Justin Steele and Shota Imanaga. So with that, I'm going to pick the Cubs to win in 3 games. I think the Mets will take 1 game from their offense. I definitely believe their offense as a whole is better than the Cubs, but I just like the Cubs pitching more than I do the Mets, and I don't think the Cubs offense is that much worse than the Mets. So Chicago will win in 3 games.
You know, when I watch these like wild card games, they really are mostly pitchers duel. These batters get nervous during the first games of the playoffs, and when a pitcher's duel between the Mets and Cubs, I just think the Cubs are going to completely overpower the Mets, and I'm going to say the Mets don't even steal a game. I'm going to say the Cubs win it in 2.
Oh wow! All right, I'm just going from past experience, just because I know how the Cubs play. No offense to Justin Steele, but I think if the Mets win a game, it'll be when he's pitching. Just the way I saw him in that Arizona game, he really needs to step it up, and I think he can. But we'll see what happens there. But I do think the Cubs are just the better team than the Mets. So with that, we have another wild card series between the Braves and the Diamondbacks, and this is going to be a really fun series. This, in my opinion, will definitely go 3 games, but I think just getting the edge with the better depth, in my opinion, and the better durability, I'm going to go with the Arizona Diamondbacks to win in 3 games.
This is a series that really sucks that it happens in the wild card matchup, because only getting 2 or 3 games between these teams is really unfortunate. 2 teams I'd definitely like to see move on. I think I'm going to take the Braves in 3 games.
All right, so you have Atlanta, I have Arizona. So with that, my division series between the Cubs and the Phillies and the Diamondbacks and the Dodgers, you have the Phillies and the Cubs, and you have the Braves and the Dodgers. So with that, I will start with the Cubs taking on the Phillies, and I think the Phillies, part of the problem is what we saw from last year. They could really fall off and struggle in the playoffs, or they could just be one of the best teams in the playoffs. You just don't know what you're going to get from the Phillies, especially offensively. But I think this year they're in a position where they really need to step it up and, win a World Series, because that's the expectation for them. They need to win a World Series. I definitely believe they can do it, but we're just going to have to see. They're the much more experienced team than the Cubs. So because of that, I'm going to pick the Phillies to win in 4 games.
Yeah, and I'm just going to talk about that same matchup. The Cubs, and this would be their first time making the playoffs since that World Series run, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong.
They made it
No?
in they made it in the 60-game season, but I'm not going to really count that. They made the wild card the year when Milwaukee won that division. We had that wild card game, and they made the NLCS when the Dodgers went to the World Series when they were defending their title. So they made it a couple more times, but they really haven't done way too much outside of 2017.
Okay, so, but obviously this is a different Cubs team from those teams, and I just don't think that this Cubs team is really ready to take that next step to get to the NLCS. So, but I think against the Phillies, they could take a game. I'm going to take the Phillies in 5.
All right, so it's possible. Look, the Cubs are not awful. They could potentially, depending on the matchup, go to the NLCS, but I just think in a series against the Phillies, with what Philly has up against them, what the expectation is, and where they are as a team, they just got to be at a point where they really got to go all in. And I just think if the Phillies make those deadline moves, they're just going to be way too much for the Cubs, and they're just not going to have enough answers. So I definitely think the Phillies will win the series and go back to the National League Championship Series. Now, you have the Braves. I have the Diamondbacks. Both teams, based off our predictions, will be going against the Los Angeles Dodgers. I'll let you go first.
This is definitely a tough matchup. But for me, I think I'm going to look to the past. That Braves team that won the World Series had to go through the Dodgers. Dodgers are a team that loves to get that 1 seed, loves to get that bye and then lose in the division series. They lost to the Diamondbacks when they went to the World Series. Lost the year before that. And so the Dodgers winning 115 games and losing in the division series just seems too obvious to me to not pick. So I'm going to take the Braves in 5 games.
I like that pick, to be quite honest with you. So you have the Braves in 5, Arizona and the Dodgers. You see, these two teams, like you said, went head to head when the Diamondbacks went to the World Series. Diamondbacks swept them. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I know the Dodgers are the defending champs. They have the team that they have, but the thing is, they're also known for losing in the playoffs, and they're not going to win the World Series every year. It is very tough to defend a championship, and I just love what Arizona's got going on right now, and I think we need a prediction that will really make this kind of exciting. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So with that, I will pick the Arizona Diamondbacks to win in 4 games over the Dodgers.
Yeah, and as you say that, kind of shows why that Diamondbacks versus Braves first round series is so unfortunate because we have both those teams in our brackets going to the championship series. It really sucks that we couldn't see those teams play a longer series against each other because I definitely think it would have been an amazing series.
If this was a championship series, Atlanta and Arizona, I definitely think it would go to 7.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be an absolutely amazing series to watch.
All right, so with that, and watch, by the time we watch this in like November, the Dodgers are going to be celebrating their back-to-back World Series championships because the thing is, like, people started down in the Dodgers. Everyone before was like, oh, they're going to win it this year. They're going to win it this year. They choke in the playoffs. All right, this year, they're going to choke in the playoffs. They win the World Series. So we'll see what happens with the Dodgers here. But it's just hard to win a championship back-to-back. So, and I like what Arizona's got going on right now. You like what Atlanta's got going on. So I just think it just makes way too much sense for the Dodgers to, choke another playoff series.
Yeah.
All right. So with that, our NLCS, you have the Braves and the Phillies. I have the Diamondbacks and the Phillies. So this is a rematch of the 2023 NLCS, and then you have a division matchup, which Phillies had Atlanta's number. So I'll let you go with your prediction.
No, I think a division matchup, NLCS is definitely a fun one. Definitely going to be a lot of bad blood. Absolutely can't wait to see the fan fights. If we get this matchup,
Yeah.
Big F. Would love to see the fan fights. But Phillies last year they struggled in the playoffs. And as you say, they got to make that push to win a World Series. And I think this Phillies team has kind of shown that maybe they don't have it in them to win a World Series. And I think at this stage, they kind of had a light series against, according to our brackets, kind of had a light series against the Cubs. Probably going to have a bit of time off if the Braves and Dodgers go to 5 games. So I'm going to pick the Braves to win in 6 games.
All right, so you have the Braves returning to the World Series. I will go with my prediction, and then we will make our World Series predictions. So I have the Phillies and the Diamondbacks, which is a rematch. Like I said, I love what Arizona's got going on, but the thing is, this could be the NLDS between the Dodgers. It could be a very hard-fought series, and Arizona just getting the edge over it, and the Phillies just have a light series. And thing is, the Phillies are just out for blood this year, and let's see what happens with the Diamondbacks if they make it this far, because you never know. So at the end of the day, I think the Phillies are the better team, and I think this will go to 7 games once again, but this time in the Phillies' favor. I'm going to pick Philly to win in 7 games over the Arizona Diamondbacks in the National League Championship Series.
Yeah, no, I definitely like that pick. Even though I picked against the Phillies, really playoffs could go any way this year, and I really wouldn't disagree with pretty much any brackets.
Yeah, but I will say this though too, Atlanta and Philly is a division rivalry, so those two teams with a pennant on the line, they're going to go head to head with each other a lot more than like Philly and Arizona. I know Philly might be trying to get their revenge over Arizona. That's that's possible, but the thing is, Atlanta and Philly is a rivalry, and they're going for a trip to the World Series. So again, that's going to be a much more competitive series, in my opinion, just because of the magnitude of the matchup with the matchup that's going to be up there.
Yeah, no, and as we saw in 2 years ago, that game goes to 7 series. Or if that series goes to 7 games, it's really going to wear on the players having to travel back and forth between those two cities. But yeah, playoffs this year, teams are going to be fighting tooth and nail. I think it's going to be as competitive as ever. Baseball, probably the sport with the most parity out of any of the leagues. And, I think that's kind of why it's so great. A team hasn't won back-to-back championships in I can't remember the last team to do it. I think it's been like since 2000.
Yeah, so it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with that. But again, so you have the Braves going against the Rangers. I have the Phillies going against the Rangers. I think either way, those two matchups are going to be very, very fun to watch. So we'll see what happens with them. I'll let you go first, and then I'll make my prediction.
Rangers versus Braves. Just amazing series. One to definitely watch all games of. I'm gonna say it goes to 7 games, but it could also not. But for the purposes of this, I will say that it go to 7 games, and I think because Braves have to go through a tougher bracket, they don't get that first round bye. They gotta go through the Dodgers, gotta go through the Phillies. As the Rangers just kind of have an easier path to the World Series, I think that the Braves are just kind of going to be wanting it a little bit more at that point and hang around and win in 7 games.
Wow. So you have the Atlanta Braves winning the World Series over the Rangers in 7 games. I'll go with my prediction here. Again, very good matchup. You're having two of the better teams in the league going head to head. Obviously, the Philadelphia Phillies are out for blood. Texas Rangers trying to have a bounce back season. Again, the Phillies, phenomenal lineup. You know what you're going to get from their pitching. And overall, they're just a very well-rounded group, and I love what I'm going to see from them. The Rangers have a very good lineup. Their pitching, a little bit more questionable than the Phillies. There are some health, issues in there. But again, they won a World Series over the last couple of years, and Philly didn't. I think the Phillies are a very good team. I definitely like what I have seen from them, and I definitely think they're going to be out for blood. They're going to go all in. However, I just like this Rangers team a little bit more, and I have the Texas Rangers winning the World Series over the Phillies in 6 games.
As you say that, that could be, the start of maybe a Rangers dynasty, a little bit.
Yeah. The thing is, though, Bruce Bochy, I mean, he's getting up there in age, so we'll see what happens with him. But they have that old Marlins manager now in that front office, so it looks like he could potentially be a replacement for Bruce Bochy. And I think it's Shoemaker. I think that's who it is, Shoemaker. I forgot his name. But either way, very good manager. Didn't get a job when almost everyone thought he was. So he could be the successor to Bruce Bochy in Texas. And you're just going to see a very competitive team from the Rangers in a very long time. So I really like what I see from the Rangers, and the Phillies are going to make it very tough for them. But like I said, I just like the Rangers just a little bit more to win the World Series, winning their second World Series in 3 years. So just to recap, Johnathan has the Braves winning in 7 games. I have the Rangers winning in 6 games. I have them beating the Phillies. He has the Braves beating the Rangers. So those are all our predictions here. And Johnathan, I'd like to thank you for being on the Cubs 360 podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd like to thank you for having me. Fun time. Had a great time. Definitely be back, get regroup at the All-Star break,
Oh, definitely.
Definitely see just how wrong we were.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens. We'll go over like what we see from everybody and all the teams at the All-Star break. This is definitely something we're going to have to do again sometime soon. So, definitely during the All-Star break, we'll look back at this and see what else differently can happen. So, I definitely think we'll be doing this in July.
All right. Thanks
All right,
again
thanks,
for having
Johnathan.
me.
No problem.
So there's the interview. There's the episode for all of you. Once again, I'd like to thank Johnathan for appearing on the Cubs 360 podcast. And this is our episode. So I will have a video for the recap of the 4-game set against the Arizona Diamondbacks. I will record that on Sunday night. So if it doesn't get out on Sunday, I'll have it out on Monday. And then the Chicago Cubs will be taking on the Athletics. It'll be the first team to play the Athletics in West Sacramento. So that's something noteworthy, also pretty interesting to see how that works out for both of those teams. But we'll see what happens there. So, like I said, I'll have my recap for the Diamondbacks coming out either Sunday or Monday. So, anyways, give me your thoughts on your predictions for the MLB season. And like I said, I'll see you for the future videos to come. So, again, if you're interested in the content, feel free to like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at Cubs360X. This is Jack from the Cubs 360 podcast. Again, thank you very much for watching. And as always, go Cubs go.